Hey guys, Or134 here with CrimsonGeneral2. Gonna do a deck profile on the the Chaos Dragon deck that played against Dark Worlds and some other stuff in our long series of matches.
In our gigantic slew of matches where our mental capacity started to deteriorate after a while. So yeah, these, Chaos Dragons, they're fun and they're derpy and they get super big and they can make big monsters probably faster than most decks can. This is actually a build pretty similar to the guy who won YCS Toulouse over in Europe. Not the Lightsworn Chaos build that came in second in Dallas. But I changed a couple of things around, and I guess I'll just explain how parts of it go. So, the most important part of the deck is Light Pulsar Dragon. You need to run 3 of them. This guy's fucking boss. He constantly recurs himself. He will get back your Darkness Metal. Like, you can have nothing, and then just pitch a Light and a Dark from your hand and get him back to the field. People underestimate that condition, but it has won me more games than I'd care to admit. So you do want to do 3 of them just to make sure you get into them or get into milling them. And 2 Dark Flare Dragons. People underestimate this guy too. His effect, you pitch a dragon from your hand to send a dragon from your deck to the graveyard, and then you can banish a card. I think in like a couple of the games in the videos, I did this thing where I would pitch a Wyvern and then banish that same Wyvern. You can't actually do that. I was told that you could, and I never questioned it. You can't do that, but regardless, it's still great. You can banish another Wyvern that's already there. And you can banish other things, but the banishing isn't really the important part. It's making sure you can send either a Light Pulsar from your deck to the grave, or from your hand to grave, or one of the Eclipse Wyverns.
And actually, one of the good things about Dark Flare Dragon is the discard and the send are both the cost to activate the effect. So if you get Veilered, you still got to pitch and send.
Yeah, so your opponent will not Veiler him unless they're stupid. So the guy we were talking about, Eclipse Wyvern, when he's sent to the graveyard at any point, that's from your hand, from the deck, from the field, whatever, he mandatorily banishes a level 7 or higher light or dark dragon monster from your deck. And then when he is banished, then you can add it to your hand. That one's optional. So you can miss the timing on it, I guess?
It's just that with the Dark Flare thing, by the time he's removed, he hasn't technically had the chance to banish a dragon yet, so he doesn't.
Yeah, so don't comment on that mistake because we already know, and we'll just hate you.
Yeah, it's not necessarily that he misses the timing because he starts both of his effects start new chains.
Yeah. So, okay. So what are the targets for Eclipse Wyvern in this deck? Well, you really only need 3 of them. There's your 2 Darkness Metals. You don't really want to run more than that because you'll get them in your hand, and that's fucking bad. You kind of just want him in the graveyard for your Light Pulsar to get. I mean, it's okay if he's in your hand. It's not a big deal. But you almost always want to go for your Dark Arm Dragon first for the Eclipse Wyvern. So this is really the only 3 you need. If you want, you can run a 3rd Darkness Metal, because sometimes late game the Eclipse Wyvern won't be getting anything when you banish him. But that's not a big deal. Eclipse Wyvern's main point is to get him to your hand way faster so that you can win the game that much faster. And you can go for Darkness Metal if you don't have him yet. So we already have a lot of Chaos, so you might as well put in more Chaos. 3 Chaos Sorcerer. Card's pretty good, I've heard. He's just, a good old boss monster. Banishes your light Eclipse Wyverns out of the graveyard. There's so many lights and darks in this deck. It'd be absurd if you drew him and he was dead. He's just a great card. And of course, their big brother, Black Luster Soldier, because he's a broken card and he should be in this deck.
He should be banned.
He should be in a lot of decks. 3 Tour Guides. One of the best dark targets in the game. It's so easy, and it baits so many things in this deck. Like, getting your Tour Guide resolved and into a rank 3 is not as big of a deal in this deck as it is in a lot of other decks. But if you do get it to work, you can go into, like, Levier or something, and there's usually a bunch of banished stuff out here because we're banishing them all for Chaos. And you got the Sengen to go with there, too. Something I want to try is Bus, but I'm not sold on Bus, ever. So now we need some good light targets. And those are where the Lightsworns come in. And there's 3 Raikos, because Raiko is good. He gets you that random mill. He can help you destroy cards that are becoming problems. And he's a good turn early play. 2 Lilas. She hits back rows. She's a little bit susceptible to Fiendish Chain, but it's usually not a huge deal if they Fiendish Chain her, because that just means you don't have to deal with it later. But you won't get the mill, so that can suck sometimes. And then 1 Aaron, that's something I like to put in here. That can get rid of a lot of problem cards, like Zen Mains. If they're sitting on a Zen Mains and you have all sorts of dragons lined up and ready to strike, you can get rid of the Zen Mains, but you might not get game. Aaron can get you that game, perhaps. And it's just good to have a 6 Lightsworn target, and I didn't want to run 3 Lilas. I feel like she might be dead. Then the rest of this deck is just more helper monsters. Card Trooper, you can run 1 or 2. I'm running 1 because I'm running the Aaron, but if I wasn't running Aaron, I'd probably run 2 Card Troopers. 2 Thunder Kings because he's a good monster. And he helps fix hands. If you don't want to run Thunder Kings, you can run Maxis instead. 2 Effect Veilers. Effect Veiler's great to have in your hand, especially now that priority is fixed. No Maxis. I have Maxis. I don't think they're needed. I really don't. Because the only deck that Maxi is so good against, like it's so against Dino Rabbit, really good against windups, and this deck has a pretty good matchup against windups. In fact, there's not a lot of decks this deck doesn't have a good Game 1 matchup against. It does great against Dino Rabbit. It does amazing against Insectors. It does great against windups as long as they don't kill your hand right away. The only one it really doesn't have a strong matchup against is like Dark World.
Yep, Dark World has a pretty strong Game 1 against this.
Yeah, if you watched any of those games, it herps really hard, and then Drew gets mad. And Gores is the last monster, because Gores is an amazing monster. And
he's the emissary of ass saving.
He's the emissary of winning games. So just 10 cards left in the deck, and what do you know? They're all spells. Staples. Why would you not run these cards? I don't know. 2 MSTs. The guy who won Toulouse wasn't using these. A lot of people say you don't need them. I still think you do. Sometimes when you need to push for game and they just have too much back row. I don't like relying on my Lilas and my Raikos to do the job for me of hitting back rows, because Skill Drain would murder this deck. And I get that's what Siding's for, but I don't want to get sacked game 1 by a Skill Drain variant. That just seems like bad news. Heavy Storm is not going to protect you all the time. And then the last 5 spells are all Seether cards, like to just get through the deck. Charge, Allure, and 3 Solar Recharges. 3 Solar Recharges might seem like a lot, and you might draw it dead, but it's better to have it within your first couple of turns than to not have it at all. And you're running surprisingly enough Lightsworns to make the 3 work. If you get to the point where you have a dead one, you should have either lost that game a long time ago, or you should have won that game a long time ago. So that's it for the main board. It is pretty basic. We'll do the extra deck, and then I'll just get into the side choices. Extra deck is pretty standard stuff too. Zen Mains, Leviair, Giga Brilliant, Acid Golem, and Leviathan Dragon. All the good rank 3s you could ever need to go with a tour guide. If you were going to pick more than one, like if you're going to pick one of these to run more than one of, definitely the Leviair. This deck can get its Lilas and its Aaron out of play so easily that you, at any given point, could be like, that Zen Mains is annoying. Well, I Leviair into an Aaron. Utopia and C39 Utopia Ray. This is really just because I don't like to not run it. I've only used it once, but there will be that time eventually that that I'll wish I had it. And you don't go to 4s that much anyway. It's just good to have the option. 1 tiers, level 5s. The only way you're really going to do this is with Dark Flare Dragon, but on the off chance you can do it and tiers will help you, go for it. Exabeetle. Exabeetle will win you games. Do not underestimate stacking 2 Light Pulsars or a Light Pulsar and a Chaos Sorcerer. It won me a game that I was staring at a Spirit Reaper for so long for. Card is surprisingly easy to get into with this deck. And then some Synchros, and these are just options with Effect Veiler. So I went for only ones that you'd be able to get with Effect Veiler. So this would be plus a level 3. Like the tour guides. This would be plus the Dark Flare. This would be plus Light Pulsar or the Chaos Sorcerer. This would be plus the Gores parts or that, I guess. I don't know why you do that, though. So you don't actually go into the Synchros that much. It's just good to have them, and I didn't want to fill up the spot with a bunch of random-ass Xyz monsters. And Chimera Tech, but that's just because Cyber Dragon's in the side. And you never know when somebody's going to do that.
Or when someone's going to be dumb enough to leave a Cyber Dragon in a machine face up and end their turn.
Yeah, it can happen. So here's the side build. I put a little bit of thought into some of the cards, but a lot of it's just leftover sides from before, because that's how we go. The third Effect Veiler, in case you need it more in the matchup. The third Thunder King, in case you need it more in the matchup. 2 Cyber Dragons. It's a good solid card to side, especially with the random Rogue Card Curry deck running around I'm always afraid of. Gadgets, you think you never see these cards, and then you play at a regional and you run into the guy.
and especially once Return of the Duelist comes out, the Gear Giano deck, they're all machines.
Cybers are going to be good again.
That deck is essentially like Gadgets, but instead of having to worry about getting their ultimate offering, they don't have to worry about it because their effects special summon each other.
So Snowman Eater, that's primarily for Dino Rabbit. Take care of their Logia, take care of all of their monsters that are 1900 or weaker. Obviously, the only thing it doesn't stop is Dolka, so just watch out for that. Electric Fires for pretty much that same matchup, but this can also hit the mirror match too. This is a nasty card that's running around, and I'm surprised with Electric Virus running around like it did that the Chaos Dragons that did so well at those YCSs didn't get hit harder by this. The third MST, in case you're playing against a really back row heavy person. 2 Forbidden Lances. I might actually move these to the main board now that priority is tweaked, because I'm seeing a lot more people wanting to run things like Chain Dis and Bottomless and things like that. So Forbidden Lance can help keep your monsters on the field. 2 Prohibitions. I love to have this for when you're playing against things like Dark World or when you're playing against heroes. You call their main monster and they can't do anything. Like, that's not just playing it. You can't use it for anything. If you call Alias, they can't Miracle Fusion. If you call Grapha, they can't discard it. It's just that weird of a card. And 2 Royal Decrees, lastly. Royal Decree is important to have if you're going to play a deck like this that has no traps. And it's not just for dragons. It's really for any deck that runs mostly monsters. When you go into sideboard, they're going to realize that their MSTs and their heavy storms are kind of dead. So they're going to side out some of their spell and trap destruction, but they might be siding into more heavy trap support to stop your big monsters. So Royal Decree is super important to have. And if you don't see them siding at all, or they're doing very little, then that's when you probably don't want to side these, because they're predicting you do that, and the Royal Decree is just going to become dead at that point. But Royal Decree, regardless, is great to have. You just got to try and guess what your opponent is siding. Anticipate the anticipation. So that's it. Chaos Dragons. They're pretty fun. Anybody who's getting really bored with the format, or is getting sick and tired of getting destroyed by Dino Rabbit, run this deck. It puts Dino Rabbit in their place by constantly bringing out monsters bigger than their boss monsters. All it takes is 1 Light Pulsar to kill a Logia, kids.
And that's Chaos Dragons. I'll try to do some more deck profiles if I feel like it, and or get around to it.
Bye, Mom.